Hello, lovely people, and welcome to my channel. I'm Stephanie, and this is Evolve Chit. It's my little corner of the world where I like to talk about spirituality, metaphysical stuff, universal laws, and psychology. So I think this is a fun topic I'd like to talk about today. I was speaking with a client recently, and in that discussion, she just point blank said, "Why the F did this whole twin flame thing happen to me?" And I know that's a question I asked along my journey here, and I've heard that from other people as well. So I want to talk about why I think this happened to us. And now that we know it, what can we do to really leverage it for our greatest good and for the greater good of the world right now? So if you're into all the spiritual stuff, I love all the new agey, metaphysically stuff. I'm just aligned with that. And I feel really fortunate that it's been a part of who I have been my entire life, from some of my earliest memories of wanting to learn about astrology at the age of 9, which was a really funny story, how that all transpired. And then, to where I am today and everything in between. Like I've just been a seeker of this kind of knowledge and have had so many interesting and unique experiences with astrology, numerology, energy, what I call energy experiments, and everything to show that maybe we are energetic beings. So if you align with all of that, then the things that I talk about in these videos, I have a lot of blog content on it too. So if you're not checking out my blog, please do so. Pretty much everything I talk about in these videos, I also put in the written form too, if you're a visual person. And I also include in there links to resources, articles, and other things that you can use, that I use in what I've done. So check those out. A lot of them are low cost and or free. So again, like, this whole experience is happening because you're recognizing this, like, emotional, spiritual layer. And it's why it feels like it can feel so painful, because a lot of these patterns, like, they die hard. And it's so activating and absolutely triggering. So it really, because it's disrupting this sense of self you've had your whole life, this illusion of how things are supposed to be, or how you're supposed to be in a relationship, especially if you're somebody who is a people pleaser, or you are, you fawn on others, you overextend yourself. So all this is doing is contrasting, like, what's aligned for you and what's not aligned for you. What is your truth versus what might be conditioning, and what is your potential and for your greater good, which is for the greater good of the world, versus what might be out of habit and routine. So, I've heard this in my research. I've read this. I think Dolores Cannon might have been the one, or at least I think they associate this with her. But, some spiritual teachers frame this journey as being like a chosen one. I never really liked that phrasing. So to me, it really means that it's about awakening. So we're just kind of having this awakening about what has worked for us, what hasn't worked for us, how we want to show up in the world. If you align with, like, an ascension path, or like the stuff I talk about with astrology, and like, you can better understand your North Star in this lifetime by understanding your astrological aspects, like your North Node, South Node. I have an article on my blog about that. It's called Decoding Twin Flames, and there's a link in the description. So these resources are typically low cost or free. So if you're somebody who wants to understand that, you can generate a chart, go to a website, and just, like, punch in your date of birth, and you can find out what your North Node is. And the resources I suggest are ones that I find really useful and practical. So check out that article. But I just feel like this is really, being a chosen one, it really is about, like, okay, you're having a willingness right now to understand why something doesn't feel right. And maybe it's something you have known your whole life, but you haven't been able to, like, give it a title or, understand it. But this experience that brought you to this video is showing you now, like, what is not feeling good, and what are you going to do about it. You can choose to ignore it and, continue to have relationships and dynamics that show up that way, or you can tap into it to better understand, like, okay, why am I feeling this, and how you can use your chakras, your energetic centers, to understand that. And it is an incredible gift, because now it helps you better manage relationships and dynamics with people who, and situations that may not be in your control. And this allows you to better articulate your needs and what your boundaries are. And you can do those things in spoken and unspoken ways by, expressing your truth versus, quietly exiting conversations or things that aren't meant for you. So really understanding yourself and what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way, it allows you just to be able to better understand like what's meant for you, what's not meant for you. And you can choose how you want to interact with those things. If you can choose to say, even though this person is, doesn't have a lot of self-awareness, they're really fun to hang out with, so I'm choosing to do that. So just choose wisely and what's best for you. And don't ignore those red flags. And because when we do, that's when we're self-abandoning. I have an article on my blog about this called The Empath's Dilemma. And I talk about, how empaths can take on the energy of other people and ignore red flags and self-abandon. So, and, how can you work through this and take this awareness? Because sometimes we have to be in these dynamics or maintain these relationships or situations because these things can show up in all ways. It's not just the romantic stuff. It's work, it's family, it's friends, it's society. How do we take this energy, this knowingness, and alchemize it? So that's like, working through the low vibe stuff that has you feeling icky, for the lack of a better word. So it's having an understanding now, like when this situation comes up and I'm feeling it here, how do I work through that? Identify it. Because oftentimes what's happening is that we're storing these experiences and as energy in our chakras and our energetic centers. Some people report feeling it, in their solar plexus, in their heart, in their sacral chakra. So check out an article I have on my blog about this too, with energetic alignment, and better helps you better understand like your chakras and your energy and how you can use whatever you're feeling in those energetic centers, rather than it being like just an unconscious response. You can tap into that, because sometimes those unconscious responses, they are triggering behaviors that are not good for us and keep us lower vibe and not aligning with our ascension path. So what a gift to be able to tap into that. It's like, wow, that's incredible. So use this self-awareness to help you continue to transcend the low vibe stuff, the stuff that doesn't feel good for you, and continue to elevate your vibe. And again, like in a practical sense, sometimes we have to still maintain or be in dynamics that kept us low vibe. So how do you work through that? How do you play in the sandbox? So that's why it's important to understand yourself, develop your self-concept, and create boundaries around things that you need to. And again, that'll vary. It could happen in, I'm not tolerating this, dynamic in my relationships. I don't have to self-sacrifice, or, I don't need to work 18 hours a day to prove my worth at work or whatever. So like whatever your worth statements are, this is again, another huge intention of the twin flame journey, is to help us see what our inner narrative is saying about who we are, and where or who other people are, or how people are going to show up. And again, we can't control how other people are going to act or respond or show up, but what we can do is control how we respond to it. And having this self-awareness is such a gift. So you probably were a person who, took on a lot of stuff in your early relationships. You were the peacemaker. You were probably the overfunctioner. So now you're awakening that you can still be a wonderfully, deeply feeling individual, but you don't have to take shit anymore. Now you are aware, and you can create these boundaries and continue to align with what's best for you. So now you can start to reframe what those boundaries are, and that's with like slowly or as quickly as you want to, move through this. So developing your self-concept, your belief about love, your belief about what your value is, or your worth at work, or, maybe you have a dream to do something, but you were told it was silly. Like how do you pursue those things that, somebody was telling you should be, or what a relationship should be, versus what it really means for you. So again, what an amazing gift to be able to have this experience, because it's showing us where we are out of alignment with our higher self, with our best self. And to me, I think that's why the twin flame journey happened. So all that spiritual stuff, right? But again, a lot of people align with this, and I do too. I think it's fun, for the lack of a better word. And it's really cool. I look at my astrological chart, and just to talk about how accurate sometimes I feel astrology can be. And I often wonder, I'm like, who came up with this? Like, what a crazy, like, science, air quotes. But there, I've looked up like the meaning of astrology. I think it was on Wikipedia, and they call it a pseudoscience, which, like, I guess rightly so, but I feel like it's another form of a science, so I don't think it's a pseudoscience. So, but anyway, going back to my chart, like, to be so intrigued and interested in all this content, there are things in my chart that point to exactly the stuff that I talk about. And it's so crazy. I'm like, that is so cool. Like, I have a very similar placement in my chart as Edgar Casey, the psychic. And I find that really interesting. And I was just like, that's so cool. I wonder if there are other, like, people who are into astrology that have similar placements, or if you're really into this spiritual kind of concept, if there's a common thread or something that ties it together. But I'm just saying, like, it's so interesting to see in my own personal experiences how accurate this content has been, wherever it was derived from or whoever initiated it. It is another way um, to understand our relation to the world, which is what science is. So how cool is that? So check out these articles that can help you better understand yourself if you are into all this stuff. So that there's an article called Decoding Twin Flames, which, again, numerology, astrology, better understanding your relationship to the world using those tools, and to understanding this whole, if you're in the runner chaser dynamic with your twin flame, understanding this whole runner chaser dynamic and what it's showing you. So that's an article I put out there recently as well. And if you want to better understand your chakras and your energy centers, check out the article, The Energetic Alignment. And if you are somebody who's on a twin flames journey, you probably heard about Liora. So in my research on my journey, I was looking for Leora's content, and I found a lot of her content using the Internet Wayback Machine, and I've cultivated all that onto a page on my blog. So check out the article called The Legendary Liora. All right, and I think this is a good place to end this video. So I hope this was helpful, and I'd love to hear from you on why you think the Twin Flames journey happened for you in the comments below. So this is just a reminder that you are loved, you are amazing, you are awesome, you are necessary, and you are really freaking needed right now. So step into your power. And until next time, I'm sending you lots of love and good vibes for your journey.